This is where I was exposed to the basics and the fundamentals of research. I think that's really important when you start to see people talking about, global elaborate trials. Everyone wants to jump right away to the multi-center randomized controlled trial, more creative study designs. I think it becomes, and I think Pittsburgh had many advantages for my training for sure. It helped me, I think, springboard to that next level of my career. So the nature of the general MBA would expose me to other people and other professionals outside of healthcare in a different way of thinking. So this was kind of what I went into the program with that mindset and what the end goal was for me and what I hope to take back.
Good evening, guys. Welcome to yet another podcast series of Brew with Bones. Joining us today on Brew with Bones is Dr. Darren De Sa, an orthopedic surgeon, scientist, educator, and an emerging leader in the sports medicine research at McMaster University. With nearly 200 publications and a formal MBA and a leadership role in surgical training and research governance, Dr. De Sa embodies the bridge between the clinical excellence, academic rigor, and team-based research dynamics. In today's episode, titled Building a Research Team Brick by Brick, we will explore how he has constructed his research ecosystem in identifying the right team members, defining roles and responsibilities, ensuring methodological integrity, aligning with the clinical workflow, as well as securing funding and sustaining momentum, which are the difficult parts. Whether you are just starting your first paper or envisioning a multi-center research, Dr. De Sa offers actionable insights in your journey. Welcome, Dr. Darren.
Thank you, Giri, and thank you for that kind introduction and this opportunity.
Thank you for being here. So you are one of the few surgeon scientists who balances high-volume clinical work with prolific research output. When did research become an integral part of your surgical identity? Was there a specific mentor or a project or an early experience during your training that ignited your passion for the academic excellence?
So prior to even orthopedic training, I have always had an interest in research. So briefly by background, I did an undergraduate in science, specialized in molecular biology. I was very interested in genetic engineering and stem cells. Throughout my undergraduate training, had opportunities to work in various lab environments in the research world, whether it be with bacteria, animal models, and things of that nature. And so always had an interest. I never had really the opportunity to do clinical work until the more advanced training by way of medical school, and orthopedics then started to present itself. So I wouldn't say it was a particular project. It was kind of a continued interest in development on first getting exposed to the research environment in academia, struggling to get things through to publication, especially wet lab and basic science research can be quite challenging. And so dealing with some of those failures and still trying to maintain motivation to continue with the initial question and that curiosity was important. And then what started to kind of emerge where I really wanted to formally make it a part of my career was as I started to transition late into medical school and into orthopedic training. And so I was very fortunate, just for background context. I'm born, raised in Hamilton, did most of my education and training at McMaster, which is largely touted as the birthplace for evidence-based medicine. So anywhere and everywhere, even if you don't want to experience it, there's research and evidence-based culture around you. And so this is the environment that I kind of grew up and trained in. And with that, you start to look to people you admire, and largely in orthopedics specifically, there was two major pivotal people in the research realm that had an impact on myself. One was Mo Bandari and everything he's created internationally for lifting the research profile of orthopedics across the globe. And as I continued to hone in on an interest, particularly in sports medicine, my current mentor, Femi Ayeni, had a lot of influence on kind of that piece. And so it wasn't a particular project, but it was seeing their success, seeing their approach, being involved in an environment that exuded research and a desire to answer questions and to back up what we are doing with high quality evidence. That whole kind of culture has motivated me into see, this is something that I can incorporate or hopefully try to incorporate in my career as I go forward.
Thank you for that very elaborate answer. I guess a right amount of passion, mentorship, and training all played a pivotal role in shaping your research career, I guess. But
Yes.
you've been at least at three centers of excellence: McMaster, Western, and Pittsburgh. So, how did each of these centers shape your research culture?
This is where I was exposed to the basics and the fundamentals of research. I think that's really important when you start to see people talking about, global elaborate trials. Everyone wants to jump right away to the multi-center randomized controlled trial, more creative study designs. I think it becomes really hard to go there without having an understanding of the fundamentals. So although all these three institutions have shaped me in research to some degree, I think my foundational training till this day has been from McMaster and through that kind of evidence-based approach, that evidence-based orthopedics approach. Western was interesting because, especially in Canada, they're a high volume center. And so in general, the kind of thing that I was able to take from them is just the importance of time management, the importance of decisiveness, the importance of, because of the nature and how their care is structured locally, it's a small group, but covering a wide catchment. You just have to be able to do a lot more efficiently, still at a high quality, and in a timely fashion. So it was kind of those kind of traits that I saw mainly from their clinical approach to care that I was able to cross over into research. And when people talk about, the publication record and just the progress that our group is able to do, these are kind of transferable traits I took from there. And I think Pittsburgh had many advantages for my training for sure. It helped me, I think, springboard to that next level of my career. Briefly, for those who may not know, Pittsburgh, particularly Pitt Sports, my main mentors there, Dr. Fu, late Dr. Fu, Dr. Musal, and the entire group there actually were very, what I learned a lot from them is the way to disseminate the information, the way to add complexity, the way to kind of involve global partners. And what was not originally evident to me prior to starting my fellowship, but became very obvious once I was there, was the powerful network they have from an alumni standpoint. Like everyone who's anyone really, in my opinion, from sports medicine, has come through Pittsburgh at some point, either as a trainee, as a visiting professor, as a staff there that's then moved. And so they have a huge and powerful alumni network, a very influential group across sports medicine. And so from there, I was able to see how we take what we're doing at the bench or the bedside and really scale it. And with that understanding, then coming back, I have a kind of a new appreciation and understanding of how I approach research. And then, a lot of the things that you see Mo Bandari do and Femi Ayeni do that also scale McMaster's group are a little bit easier for me to understand and now kind of contribute to.
Wonderful. So you got the foundation at McMaster and gained the knowledge on pacing up at Western ideas and started to fly high from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I would say Pittsburgh really springboarded my academic career, not only in the people there, but the opportunities it provided.
Mm-hmm. You have both an MD and an MBA, a very unique combination, I guess. How did business training influence, the structuring and leading a research team?
Yeah, that's a great question. The MBA. So I chose to do a general MBA intentionally. So there's MBAs with all sort of specializations. Most, I would say, in my world go for healthcare specific and wanting to pursue specific healthcare administration. I chose a general MBA specifically with the intent of getting skills and an approach that can be transferable across domains, whether it's healthcare, whether it's research, education, whether it's outside of medicine. Also, the nature of the general MBA would expose me to other people and other professionals outside of healthcare in a different way of thinking. So this was kind of what I went into the program with that mindset and what the end goal was for me and what I hope to take back. Just a different perspective of approaching things. And then what was quite helpful is because of the general nature, you have a smattering of courses across various elements of business. And so I had exposure to marketing, I had exposure to operations, and logistics. And, in that setting, you may be learning how factories or companies like Amazon are able to do things very fast and efficient, but there's transferable skill sets that you can apply to your world. And I had that background healthcare that I'm now bridging in. I had courses in leadership, how to structure, for example, teams, high functioning teams, how to keep people motivated. These are common issues that happen in the workplace. You hear terms like quiet quitting, or how to objectively create promotional schedules to allow people to grow and develop. So all these concepts that are common in many workplaces I was exposed to. Strategy as well, how businesses think, again, transferable concepts. So the training was pivotal in the sense of that while I didn't specialize in one particular route, it allowed me to kind of dabble in many kind of elements of business. And then I spent a lot of time thinking about how it applies to my particular role, and then started to bring it in. So, we can go specifically into different elements of that, but it was actually quite helpful. And I think intentionally, because of the general nature of it, it allowed more of a seamless transition to assembling the teams and contributing to the teams that I'm part of too.
That's very brave and thoughtful decision, I guess, to do a general MBA, because at least in India, if we opt for a general MBA, we should go through a lot of financial training to complete the course. It's a very brave thought, and I'm very happy to know it helped a lot in building a research team as well. When starting a research lab or a group, what is the first brick you recommend laying? Infrastructure, people, funding, or vision?
I think, they're all important. I think when I'm thinking about how I was brought into the teams within Mac Ortho, within Pittsburgh, for example, and then how I've tried to develop my own sort of research program, I think it is important to start with a vision to a degree. We always say kind of start with the end in mind. That's a kind of phrasing I remember taking through my different courses and different mentors. That theme was kind of consistent. So you got to kind of know or have an idea of where you'd like to end up, and then almost reverse engineer that process. So to get to that stage, then what are the elements to do this? It's in the same way when you look at building a house, right? When you're talking brick by brick, you often see the full structure of the house on paper. This is the goal. And now where do we go? We got to find the location. We got to dig the foundation. We got to add all these pieces. So I would say the vision is probably the most important. And very close second is the people. So you can have all the vision and direction and goals you want, but if you don't have the right people with you, and that's a whole kind of another discussion of how you get to those people. But if you don't have the right people, you're going to go nowhere. And so those are the two things I value the most: is that you have the right people, you have people that are engaged and seeing your vision and want to be part of that vision in the same way that I was when I was brought onto different teams and I'm part of teams now. Those are the two critical factors. All the other stuff, I think you can learn, you can outsource, and you can find other ways. But if you don't have those two critical pieces, I think it's hard to progress.
So vision is the first brick that you should develop, and the next brick is finding the right people. So coming back to people, so what are the qualities do you look in the first few members of the research team when you interview them? Do you look for curiosity, discipline, communication, or a burning passion?
So yeah, I was chatting with I was in a faculty development workshop last week, and this kind of came up in terms of, this is a long kind of way. I'll be brief to try to get to your question, but they wanted us to focus on emotional milestones that pivotal things in our life that affect kind of how we are and how we approach things. And when I think of people and selecting the right people, I always remember my personal experience when I was the age of 13 and playing basketball. And briefly, the way basketball is structured here in our area is that everyone, so all the kids that desire to play on a team, try out together. All the coaches are in the same gym at the same time. And then there's the highest level, which we call AAA. Then you go to AA, single A, then you go triple B, double B, single B, and you go down this way all the way to C. And as the players are doing the different activities, coaches there are selecting their teams, and people get weeded out as you go down the structure. The first year I played, it was the first year playing basketball, and I went through that whole filter, and I ended up not on any team at all. We were called kind of the dirty dozen, the people that didn't find a team, had minimal to no skill set, etc., and ended up playing that year just because a parent volunteered to allow us to have the opportunity. The very next year, I went back, did the same process to go through the filtering, except I had made the highest level team. And nothing really changed in year 1 to year 2 in terms of my basketball skill, to the point where it created a huge disruption in the organization, because for me to take the AAA team, I had to displace another player. People had been together for a while. There's a trickle-down effect to the organization. People could see that my skill set wasn't there. And it was quite awkward. And so I remember in that moment, that's pivotal, and I talk about it a lot, where we went with my dad and myself, and we spoke to the coach and said, hey, I think you made a mistake. I don't belong on this team. This is where I play. I didn't even make a team last year. How do I go from there to here? And what he said, that coach, was he was very sure that he did not make a mistake. He acknowledged that he didn't have the skill set. And what he said is, it doesn't matter that you haven't played for years. It doesn't matter that you haven't been in these camps or had maybe this access to all these other equipment and separate skills trainers. But when I asked you to dribble with your left hand, you dribbled with your left hand. When I asked you to shoot here, you shot there. You may have missed the whole net, but you did what I was asking to do. And when I, refined your technique or made some suggestions on how to do this a little bit better, you tried to do it. And so you are coachable. You are responding to criticism, constructive or not. You are willing to get better. And, these are the things like you will get better if you're in an environment of people that force you to be better. So you will get to the AAA level if you give me a year and you play with us for a year, and you have these kind of skills that I've observed that, it's in the right environment, you'll succeed. And so at the time, I was 13, I was like, this is crazy. I couldn't really understand how you would see that, but I did. Like I got measurably better because I was around people that were better, and you're a product of your environment. And what he gave me a chance on was the fact that it didn't matter how long I'd been with the organization. It didn't matter how much skill I had. It didn't matter anything objectively. So when I look at this, I've always transferred it to building a team where, you get a lot of people that have very impressive CVs. That is important, but it doesn't matter really to me. It doesn't matter how much research you've done. You could have had zero research experience. Everyone has to start somewhere. You can't drive a car by sitting in the parking lot, right? You can't learn to drive by sitting in the parking lot, so to speak. And so what I look for, and I spend a lot of time, I will meet usually with people that are interested in joining our research program. I get 1 to 2 emails a day from different learners at different levels. And where best as possible, I try to meet with them and try to get a sense of these skills, you would say, or personality traits that don't necessarily come out on a CV, or that someone may not necessarily volunteer. Willingness to just learn, a willingness to be part of something better, and that kind of deal. So I spent a lot of time trying to see what that coach saw in me at 13 to cause such a disruption in that organization at the time. And it's maybe not to the same scale in research, but it is important because everyone is largely on paper the same. All are high achievers, all have great marks, all have some really good CVs. It's the personality pieces that are going to be the most important to building a sustained team that allows you to grow.
The willingness to be a part of something bigger is the most important criteria of this.
Yeah, and everyone, and I'm guilty of this too. Everyone wants to also personally grow, right? You want to build your CV, you want to build your academic profile. That's important, but that should not be the sole driver.
Yes. But many surgeons struggle to find collaborators. When you find one, how do you, retain like-minded researchers and students early on in the team?
Yeah, so this is I think maybe it's a little bit less in academia now, but it's still there. Collaboration is hard because, again, as I mentioned, we're all high performers. We all have very robust professional degrees and CVs, and all want to be, leaders. And so, again, it's that team. I'm in sports medicine, so I use a lot of team references and analogies that way. But it comes down to, from my personal experience, the way you collaborate is you treat people the way you want to be treated. That's a very simple way. It sounds very idealistic, but it's something that is still not and very difficult to practice in academia. There's still fights about group authorship, about authorship order, about so-and-so did this and I didn't do this, and blah, blah, blah. And things start to fall apart across, really, in the grand scheme of things, minor details that will halt your progress. And this was when, to your earlier question about how did I become part of research, I spent a lot of time in basic research in various different labs, very different settings. And I'd actually, although for all the good it was in terms of developing skill sets and knowledge bases and that kind of thing, there was some issues that affected my collaboration to the effect of I almost walked away from research entirely. Briefly, I'm talking about things where, when it came time to apply and I'm asking different members of the team, can you send me a list of abstracts you've submitted, publications that you've submitted of work that I've been a part of, so I can add it to my application for success? I was sent it. I don't know what prompted me to look at it even further, but basically my name was highlighted in blue in the whole document. And initially it would appear that it was like a hyperlink from a searching for my name, but I ran these same titles and abstracts through PubMed and through other research avenues and found that it was the exact same title, the exact same authorship list, except I was left off. And this was very early in my training. I was a very junior learner. I was an undergraduate student for most of the time. And that was a very kind of pivotal time point where I didn't understand why this was happening to me. I did the work, I contributed to a degree. I felt I should be a co-author. I wasn't. And I wasn't going anywhere in that process. And this was not unique to one lab. This was kind of the culture that I was seeing at this kind of basic science wet lab type environment. I always remembered that, and I was told different things. You're a learner here, you're getting paid on scholarship, that's your reward. Authorship is not your reward. But there were things that didn't jive with me, but excuses that were being made to minimize the contribution that I made. And I think just because of the position I was in relative to others, right? I wasn't the postdoc, I wasn't the principal investigator, I was a student, a summer research student, and maybe looked at differently for that reason, I don't know. But that always left a bad taste in my mouth to the point where I didn't want to do any research until I flipped and I started to switch to, under the mentorship of Dr. Bandari, Dr. Ayeni. It was the same thing in the sense I was still junior relatively in their teams. But what I would notice really quickly is the work I did, I was given credit for. I was not always kept in the same level. I was not always, for example, in the systematic review, I was not always the screener and the data abstractor. There were opportunities as I developed and learned the system to write, to get feedback on my writing. As those things made it to publication, there were opportunities to then go and present. It wasn't the PI stealing the credit, so to speak, or the senior resident taking the credit. What you put in is what you got out. And it was irrespective, as even to my point about basketball, irrespective of how long I'd been with the organization, my experience, my level of training, I was treated as a member of the team. And that flipped my whole mindset on research. That flipped my whole mindset on wanting to do more. And it flipped kind of how I treat people. I have a lot of learners at different levels with me. And I meet with them and I say, as much as you put in, this is not me taking it and going. This is an opportunity, like someone gave me an opportunity to grow, the same. And I find that's the key to, or one of the keys to maintaining a sustained program of research, because what happens is you can use people and achieve short-term success. And if they're not getting what they need in terms of development, very quickly people say, I can do this on my own. And they start to defect and go do their own things. And then for different reasons that may take off and may not, but it collapses the team and you end up repeating the same steps over and over with new people. We fortunately have not had to really do that. Our team is allowed to grow because the people that start at one level continue to acquire skills, continue to grow their own profile, all while taking the whole team elevated. Like I do benefit from that, but they also do it. They also directly benefit as well. And that allows it to kind of spawn out and grow and exponentially grow as opposed to constantly having high turnover. So these are kind of the things, these kind of pivotal things that, how I've been treated, and that changed it around for me that I try to do. It doesn't work for everyone, but that's kind of what I've tried to carry forward in my practice.